Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I thought it would be kind of fun to do beginner brush strokes. We're going to do very beginner. We're going to start from the bottom, work our way up, and just see how it goes. So let's get started. Okay, first things first when it comes to brush strokes. Well, brush. I am doing watercolor. I always use my round brushes. So I have pulled out my two favorite brand of round watercolor brushes. Do you have to use these? No, these are just my favorite. So I have a number 8 silver black velvet. I will admit this is my favorite silver black velvet brushes in general. Second favorite is my number 8 round Princeton Neptune. Now, keep in mind, just because a number 8 says number 8, there's no universal number 8. As you can see though, these are pretty close to one another. I can show you an example real quick of one that's not. Okay, so here's another number 8. This is the Princeton Aqua Elite. I tried them and I wasn't a big fan, but as you can see, just a little bit different in the way they're made. That said, they're pretty close, right? Ooh, be on camera, Corey. They're pretty close, but because we're doing beginner brush strokes, I'm going to use brushes that I'm comfortable using. You use what you're comfortable using. If you don't have a favorite yet, I suggest going to the art supply store, waiting for a sale, and kind of just grabbing whatever you can. I am going to work with my silver black velvet. Now, as you can see, when wet, it does have a little bit longer of a tip, but not by much. It's just, I gravitate towards this one. Now, let's hope my paint's watered up nice. But the whole point of this is we're just going to have some fun with very basic strokes of the brush. This is a good way to test your brush, get to know your brush. And I picked green for some weird reason. It's not like I'm making leaves. But like I said, we're going from the very beginning and working our way up. That means we'll eventually work our way up to more advanced strokes. But we're starting with the basics that help you get to know your brush. Okay? So now I'm going to get some paint on there. All right. So first things first is zooming in. So the first thing I like to do, even when I buy a new brush, is I like to just kind of do lines, little lines, test the pressure, see how much paint it's holding. And then I like to kind of do little squiggly lines, just using the tip, squiggly lines. And you can do 1, 2, 3, kind of like pull out the strokes a little. So basically you press down, lift up, press down, lift up. That just kind of helps me get an idea of how much paint it releases, because every brush is different. And that's something you got to keep in mind. So then I usually will move from doing that to holding it down a little longer, pressing and lifting. Holding it down longer, lift. We're not making art here. We're playing around with strokes. So I'm just kind of testing it out. This is kind of the basics to getting a leaf started, but that's not what I'm doing. I'm just kind of testing it out and seeing what I think. Now I grab some more color. Then the next thing I like to do is press down, hold, lift, press down, hold, lift, press down, hold, lift, just to test it out. Now I am using my Etcher cold press sketchbook. These were hard to find for a little while, and it's been so long since I went shopping for one. I honestly don't know if they still have them. I need to look. This is my favorite. I have like a whole closet full. Okay, see, so I'm still practicing little squigglies. I want to see how I can get that to work, and then sometimes like make little squigglies around one another, which will eventually turn into a flower if you kept going. Now this is a number 8. I typically do a lot of my work with a number 8. Sometimes I'll move up to another one, but still. Now I'm going to try pressing and lifting, pressing and lifting. Okay, let's try this again. Press, lift, hold, press, lift, hold. Too much coffee today for me. All right, so you see how that feels like you can get a thick line with it, and it seems to hold its paint really well. It's also kind of nice to see what happens when it dries out. I'm just going to dip it in the water, not the paint, so I get more of a washed out. Okay, and this just helps you get to know how your brush is bending. Let's try something else. Okay, now we're going to move on to C curves and S curves. These are terms you'll hear a lot when people are doing florals. I do watercolor florals, so that is something I would be saying a lot, but your C curve is, well, a C. You can make it thin, thick, thin, thin, thick, thin. Get the gist? And you can make it even more of a C. But you just kind of want to play around with the C curve. Now, S curve. You can also try it lightly. See how the brush responds. Press down. See how the brush responds. So you want to just keep doing different ways. Like even with my C curve, maybe I want to just keep it all the same. Or maybe I want it thin here, thick here, and then thin here. Of course, you can't always like twist your brush, so sometimes you got to play around with it. Then like get more paint. Move on to purple or something next, right? But so say I want my S curve thin, thick, thin, and then you can even always go back and add more. I mean, this is watercolor. If anyone tells you there's rules, stop listening. All right, so the same stroke that you use to create an S curve and a C curve is the basics of creating leaves. I'll water down my color here a little bit. A very basic leaf, okay? So let's try that and see what we can do. Get over here. So I'm just going to do a line and then press down and then lift. You can make it any way you want. Line, press down, lift a little. You could also line, press down, lift a lot, and then add your stem. All right. See, super simple because we've already been doing that up here. Now let's say I want to do a leaf with a white line in between it. Because white space is basically our lines, right? Helps create the image. So I'm going to go down and up, down and up, and then add my line. And again, it's kind of like a half C curve. Half C curve. You can add to it if you want. Add your line. So your C curve doesn't have to be a full C to create the leaf, but it's just the curving motion of your brush. That helps you create that. Now, say we were going to use the S curve. We've practiced here with the S, but we want to make a leaf that's more curvy. That's where your S curve will come into the curvy. So I usually, oops, way too much paint on there. I like to usually kind of go like that, down, and then up. And then I come through the bottom here and meet at the top. Okay? And you can make it as thin, thick as you want. Also, keep in mind how much paint you have on your brush when you're doing that, though. So say I want to go down, curve, and then up, and then down, curve, up. And we just did our S curve. See? So fun. And did I say C like 5 million times? I totally did. The biggest thing you want to practice, though, is just pressure. Light, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy, light. Now where's medium? Probably about there for me, but we're all so different. So you want to keep practicing that. And then occasionally just start throwing in little strokes, like practice pulling paint out. See how your brush responds. Pull it out, pop something at the end. Why not add another curve there? I don't like how that finished. I'm going to add that. So you just keep playing with the strokes. Simple strokes, but they help you create something. Same thing if I wanted to create like a long leaf. I'll make a very loose S curve to it. But I'll just kind of go light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. And you could make a little bundle of those. Light pressure, heavy pressure, light pressure. Let it come out, heavy pressure, light pressure, and there you go. So it's just a matter of how much is your S curve going to be an S, right? And it can go at any angle. But I mean, if I want to keep going with my thinner leaves, I would just do that and then break off, curve it up. Maybe we'll break off here, curve here. Maybe I want to add a branch there and then curve it. Okay, you could even add your little extras here and there. Maybe I want to make this one spikier now. Is this a technique to say I want to make it spiky? No, but it is now. You see my point? These are very basic strokes. These are literally the foundational strokes before you get to anything else. So what we've covered, like I said, these are going to be short. We'll move on to others in the next video, but we've covered just basic lines. So creating your lines and then practicing with those lines, you know, pressing a little harder, harder, a lot harder. Don't be afraid to just use your brush. You're not going to hurt it unless you're sitting there smashing it downward. But just create strokes, okay? And then we've covered our C curve because it is an important one to know, especially if you do florals. It's a good one to practice. When you do your S curve, it's always good to know that you can move your hand in any direction and create your S. You can have a skinny S to a fat S, but you want to practice with those first. And then of course, squiggly lines. I always like to practice with squiggly lines because eventually when I start creating certain florals, I start them with a squiggly line. Now I will grab my Neptune. It doesn't have as pointy of an end as the silver black velvet brush, but we won't hold that against it, right? But you have to just kind of do it a little differently. So I have to use even lighter pressure because see how this one has a much pointier end than this one here. So that's something you need to keep in mind when you're doing this. So same thing, if I were to do some squiggly lines, I need to be a little bit lighter. If I want to press down heavier and lift, heavier and lift. And we all have our preference on brushes. I think one of the reasons I like the black velvet is I like the way it holds water and paint, but I really do like how it's a little extra pointy. Let's see, do I have paper over here I can practice with? Yeah. So, say I was going to do light, heavy, light, heavy, light, heavy. There you go. Now if I was going to create a leaf with this one, I would do my light, and then lift, and then I can do light, and then lift, and you can always tighten that up. But it's a different brush for me, and even for me, to be honest, I have to keep practicing with my Neptune, whereas I feel more natural with my silver black velvet. But look, we've filled an entire page using just those little strokes. So it's really good to keep practicing and then just kind of find what works for you. I'm creating my little S curves here, because we're all so different, right? So take the brush that you think is your favorite, play around with that first, then take a brush that you don't think is your favorite and play around doing just the basic strokes, lines, squiggles, C curves, S curves. And then next lesson, we'll start kind of practicing some other techniques that'll get you ready for florals, and then we'll start putting them together as we keep going on. But these are what I start with, and anytime I buy a new brush, doesn't matter the size either, even a 12, I will sit and do an entire page like this of just these basic strokes, because that's how I can get a feel for it. Okay, like how much does this put out on the paper? How well does it handle a curve? How well will it, create my leaf? So anytime you get a brush, you should do that as well. But yeah, hopefully you found that helpful. We will move on to the next lesson soon. I'm going to be doing these in between my pigment and name comparisons, because we do have yellow ochre coming up. So stay tuned for that next week, hopefully. Fingers crossed. And then, as always, you can buy my watercolor fat dots of all the colors I use in those in my Etsy store. I'll leave a link in the description below, as well as links to everything I use today. You do not have to click on them. It just does help my store, the little affiliate kickback we get, but it doesn't cost you any extra. And I'm so sorry for the jets. They tend to fly around if they know I'm filming. I swear they stalk my schedule. But thanks for hanging out and doing some basic watercolor. And until next time, take care. Bye now.